watched the video of this this mortgage fraud that is required by the state. Um, it's rather interesting. It's rather it's old. My hope is that they would have updated it by now, but they haven't, which is okay. We're gonna make it do what it do. Georgia Mortgage Fraud Act. Booyah. Y'all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, I want that. This is what I want right here. Booyah. There we go.
We out now.
I know it. I took it down. You back now, right?
Yes.
All right, here we go. What the what? Oh.
The General Assembly finds and declares that fraud involving residential mortgages is at an all-time high in the United States and in Georgia. Mortgage lending institutions and borrowers have suffered hundreds of millions of dollars in losses due to residential mortgage fraud. Homeowners in neighborhoods plagued by mortgage fraud have witnessed deterioration of their neighborhoods. Fraudulently inflated property values in their neighborhoods have resulted in substantial increases in property taxes. The General Assembly, therefore, concludes that for the protection of the general public, and particularly for the protection of borrowers, homeowners, lending institutions, and the integrity of the mortgage lending process, the Georgia Residential Mortgage Fraud Act shall be enacted.
What could she have had to have done to get 10 years in prison for mortgage fraud?
Hal, I've got to tell you, I start off by asking the students how many of them, after assuring them that no one is in the room and with law enforcement or the real estate commission, how many have actually been involved in a mortgage fraud case. And I'll get maybe one or two or maybe three people who will raise their hand. But after we've gone through the class and explained what mortgage fraud is, I ask the same question. And almost everybody raises their hand. I got to tell you, my friend, if it wasn't for just a little bit of luck, you and I could be in that same place.
Wow, it's hard to believe. Can you imagine everything we've done that could have been mortgage fraud?
Will you stop with that incessant pounding of your head? You're driving me crazy.
I shouldn't
Is the
be
volume
here.
good
If it
enough for
wasn't
you
for
guys?
you, I wouldn't be sitting here.
I didn't get you in here. You're the attorney. You're the one with the education. You should have known better.
All I knew is they passed a check before I could do anything. I got handcuffs on me because of you.
And for me, you're supposed to be the attorney. You're supposed to know better than this. How could you not know that this was fraud?
How did I know you had your people paying a check at the closing table? Until I saw it happening, I didn't know it was going to happen. I went to law school for 3 years, went an extra year to get a master's of law. All that's down the drain. My family's disgraced.
Your family's disgraced. Kong down in Block C, he was asking me for a picture of you to hang in his cell this morning. They're gonna be disgraced when this is all over. I didn't commit mortgage fraud.
I don't care.
I can't believe you got us in here for 5 years.
Do you know how many other people could be here with us right now?
My name is David McLaughlin. I am a Senior Assistant Attorney General for the State of Georgia Department of Law, also known as the Attorney General's Office. I am in the Special Prosecutions Unit. Our unit prosecutes a variety of white-collar crimes, offenses involving the state departments and agencies, and government corruption. In addition to prosecuting these offenses, we also prosecute crimes such as identity fraud and securities fraud. And most recently, the Georgia law has changed to allow the Attorney General to investigate and prosecute residential mortgage fraud. Prior to May 2005, the state of Georgia did not have a residential mortgage fraud law. As such, no one law enforcement agency or prosecution office was actively involved with the investigation and prosecution of residential mortgage fraud. In 2005, Attorney General Thurbert Baker made it his goal for that year to ensure that the Residential Mortgage Fraud Act was written and passed. Senator William Hamrick out of Carrollton, Georgia, was responsible for carrying the bill and making sure that the legislation was passed. As a result, Georgia became the very first state to have a residential mortgage fraud law. The Attorney General and the district attorneys of this state are authorized now to prosecute residential mortgage fraud. As a result of the new law, that's pretty much all I do. The majority of my cases and the majority of my time is spent working on the prosecution and investigation of residential mortgage fraud. It is important that you understand that no longer in Georgia is residential mortgage fraud just a concept. It is a crime. It is a crime punishable by considerable fines. It is a crime punishable by a considerable amount of time in prison. It is important that you realize in Georgia, when a person uses a misstatement, misrepresentation, or omission in the mortgage lending process, they commit the offense of residential mortgage fraud. And as you can imagine, and as you'll see throughout this DVD, misstatements, misrepresentations, and omissions can occur in any number of ways and in any number of methods. And it's important that you, as a real estate licensee, realize how important it is to be on the lookout for the red flags and the signs of residential mortgage fraud. If you take nothing else with you from this DVD session, remember the words misstatement, misrepresentation, and omission, for they are the essence of residential mortgage fraud. If you find or encounter a misstatement, a misrepresentation, or an omission, you need to ask yourself why. Because the answer in almost every instance is going to be the presence of mortgage fraud. If you're convicted of residential mortgage fraud in Georgia on just one piece of property, on just one misstatement, misrepresentation, or omission, you can be sentenced from 1 year to 10 years in prison and pay up to a $10,000 fine. If you engage in a pattern of residential mortgage fraud, and that's simply defined as 2 or more misstatements, misrepresentations, or omissions on 2 or more properties, then the punishment increases from 1 to 10 years to 3 to 20 years in prison and up to a $100,000 fine per property. We also have a forfeiture provision. The Residential Mortgage Fraud Act provides that the state may seek forfeiture of any and all property used in or derived from the crime of residential mortgage fraud. That means the state can seize from fraudsters and forfeit to the state houses, cars, businesses, money, and anything else used in or derived from the fraud. That's significant. And so a person may not just be looking at prison, but a person may be looking at having everything seized from them that they used or derived from their fraud. In the federal system, punishments can range from a few months to decades in prison. One notorious Atlanta lawyer in 2006 went to prison for 30 years because of her role in residential mortgage fraud. Now, please remember that to be guilty of residential mortgage fraud, you have to
That's the
know
lawyer I was telling you guys
engage
about.
in conduct.
30 years.
It's not enough that
32
you
years
merely
old.
learned of it later or that you were used by the fraudsters without your knowledge. And that can happen. But I must caution you that as a licensed professional, as a person who knows the industry, who knows the practice, when you encounter the red flags, when you encounter the fraudulent sales contracts, for instance, when you encounter what you know is a fraudulent appraisal, and even if you had nothing to do with the preparation of it, if you take a fee from that closing, you yourself may be guilty of residential mortgage fraud. Where do you report residential mortgage fraud? First and foremost, as a licensee here in Georgia, you should talk to your broker. Tell them what has happened. Tell them what your suspicions are. Tell them what fraud you believe is taking place. You may report residential mortgage fraud on the local level to the district attorneys, to the local municipalities and police departments, or to the sheriff's department. On a state level, you may report it to my office, the Georgia Department of Law. On a federal level, you may report it to the United States Attorney's Office or the FBI. Now, throughout this training video, you will see a number of people essentially role-playing. Some of these play lawyers, agents, brokers. Some of them play people that aren't really on the up and up, people in my world that I generally call defendants. You should please know that everybody in this video has volunteered their time and are merely actors, albeit unpaid actors. Though the scenarios that are represented herein represent true and actual events that I encounter and that they encounter through their day-to-day lives in the mortgage lending industry.
Okay, Scott, I've got all your debts loaded in now. How much is your combined annual income?
$137,000, that's it.
Scott forgot to mention he pays $800 a month child support for his 7-year-old daughter. Does that need to be added to our debt?
Yeah, I forgot about
You
that.
always forget about that.
Let's look at the numbers. Let's don't add it right now. I'm looking at this and we're a little off.
What do you mean, off?
Don't we qualify?
Now, just hold on now. I just need about $8,000 more in annual income. You have any additional income you haven't told me about?
No, we're both on straight salary. We don't get any overtime either.
What about bonuses? You get annual bonuses?
No.
No, $137,000, that's all we make.
You get annual pay raises?
I wish.
Yeah.
Well, let me get a little creative here. Scott, I'm going to put you in that, and you'll get $6,000 additional pay raise next year, and Donna, I'm going to put you down for additional $3,500 in income. Does that sound reasonable to you two guys?
Is it okay to just guess like that?
Honey, he's just trying to help. That's why Carol sent us to him.
I'm just trying to get you into your house.
Well, Don, I do appreciate all your help. We just haven't done this before.
Give me a minute here. I got the numbers in here. I'm going to run automated underwriting and see what it says. Congratulations, I've got you approved.
Great, Don.
I can't believe we're finally gonna own a home.
Well, I've got to call Carol and give her the exciting news, but in the meantime, take this application home, fill it out for me.
Great.
And don't forget about the additional income you and I talked about, okay?
Okay, super.
He really knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Carol, it's Don. I've got Scott and Donna approved.
Great, Don. Did you have any problems with them?
Well, I had to do something a little creative on the income, but you know how that is.
That's why I sent them to you. I'll get you a copy of the contract faxed right over. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you.
Acts involving residential mortgage fraud occur throughout the mortgage lending process. Some of the steps of the mortgage lending process are not necessarily steps that real estate licensees are involved in. Nonetheless, it's important that we all understand how fraud works throughout the mortgage lending process. One of the biggest areas that we see residential mortgage fraud take place is in the mortgage loan application. This is a document that we're all familiar with. Most people, having bought homes in the past, have filled out a residential mortgage application. Usually we see fraud take place in the loan application process in 2 or 3 main areas. The biggest area being the income of the borrower. Often income is overstated by 5, 10, 20%, sometimes by as much as 100 to 200%. Often we see employment listed for people who don't even have jobs. And while income is often verifiable, there are a variety of mortgage loan programs out there where a borrower may merely state their income and no supporting documentation is needed. Another area on the loan application that we often see fraud is by overstating assets or underreporting debts that a given borrower may have. Misstatements and misrepresentations or omissions regarding income are designed to make the borrower appear to have a greater income than they really have, thus the ability to qualify for greater loans. Not reporting debt or underreporting debt is similarly designed to conceal the borrower's true financial picture. Often, as a real estate licensee, you grow close to the borrowers. You begin to learn things about their family, their employment, and during this process, you will occasionally come to realize that the loan application that the borrower has filled out and has submitted has misrepresentations, misstatements, or omissions.
What do you think about the kitchen?
It's nice. Nice.
This back is beautiful.
It sure is.
Glad you like the back, the patio. I certainly thought this home would make a great addition, Ann and Carlton, to your overall needs in terms of enjoying your children and your grandchildren once you move down from upstate New York.
We think this will make us a great second home. Let's make an offer on it, Ann.
Okay.
Ray, I'm going to call your lender this time to get some particulars on your loan so that when we get back to my office, we can write a contract, okay?
Okay, we'll do that.
That's good.
What you think? It's pretty. It's nice. Pretty down
Carlton, no, this is not going to be a second home. The lender thinks it is. I would never spend one day here.
I've told you, Ann, from the very beginning, we're not going to live here. This is going to be an investment for us. It will make a great rental property. We can get at least $500 a month over and above our mortgage after our tenant pays our rent.
Another area of fraud on the loan application involves representing that a property is to be a primary residence versus a secondary residence or an investment property. The reason this is done so frequently in the mortgage lending process is this. In order for a borrower to borrow money for an investment loan, several things happen. Number one, lenders often scrutinize those loans to a much higher degree than they do primary residence loans. Number two, investment property purchases often require a down payment, which the fraudsters rarely have. Number three, the interest rates and the insurance costs of an investment property purchase is much higher. So we see in a majority of the mortgage fraud transactions, the borrower misrepresenting the purpose of the purchase on the loan application, and in most every instance will indicate that the property is to be for their primary residence, even when they know, and you know, that it's for an investment purchase. And in Georgia, again, that would constitute residential mortgage fraud. No discussion of residential mortgage fraud would be complete without a discussion about the victimization of mortgage fraud. Now, we can start off with the obvious, the lenders who lose money because of residential mortgage fraud. If you're a lender and you've lent money on a piece of property that is subject to mortgage fraud, you will lose 37% of the face value of that loan. So the lender is victimized. How is that passed on? That's passed on to everyone, the consumers, through the form of ATM fees, higher interest rates. The consumers directly bear the impact of residential mortgage fraud losses to the lenders. Where else is mortgage fraud felt? In the communities in which mortgage fraud takes place, we see two things happen. First of all, because of the nature of mortgage fraud, rarely does somebody actually move in to the property that's been purchased. Often, when someone does move into the property, it's somebody that's a friend or an acquaintance of the mortgage fraudster, often a criminal themselves. When we see mortgage fraud hit a community, we see crimes such as narcotics, identity fraud, mail theft dramatically increase. So the neighborhoods in which fraud takes place actually become less safe. Also, because nobody moves into the house, because nobody has any real ownership interest in it, the property
I'm sorry, guys. I thought I was unmuted. I said I keep getting messages that the volume is low. Was that low for everybody? Or was it? It was good.
I could
Okay.
hear it.
It's low
Okay.
for me.
It was low.
It was low?
All right to me.
I mean, I turned it all the way up, and I still, and it's like I have to get close to my computer to hear.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all of my systems are go from a sound.
It was good for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I was good.
All right. I apologize to those that are not getting it or hearing it, but my system's showing that everything is good.
These themselves sit vacant, become run down, the weeds grow up, and the subdivision as a whole sees a
That was me. I'm sorry.
decrease in the inherent property value. On the other hand, because of the mortgage fraud transactions, because these transactions are often 100 to 200% above the true value of the homes in the neighborhoods, we see the property taxes dramatically increase, not just for the homes subject to the mortgage fraud, but to all the other homes in the neighborhoods, and then the adjoining neighborhoods, and so on and so forth. Now, you may find yourself saying, I'm glad I don't live in a subdivision wrecked by mortgage fraud, and I'm not directly victimized. But the truth of the matter is, you are. We all are. You see, you have to understand the nature of the mortgage lending system in the United States. The overwhelming majority of mortgages are immediately sold off on the secondary market. They're bought by companies like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and bundled into what we call mortgage-backed securities, which are sold as securities. Anyone that has a well-diversified 401k portfolio, investment portfolio, or other form of retirement probably has a portion of that backed by mortgage-backed securities. And when fraud is discovered in these securities, the inherent value of the securities is lost. So you can see the impact of residential mortgage fraud isn't just on the shoulders of the lender. It's not just on the shoulders of the subdivision. It's on all of our shoulders. And you as a real estate licensee in particular. Because as the market is hit harder and harder by residential mortgage fraud, it becomes more and more difficult in these subdivisions for real estate agents and licensees to sell and move homes. And I can't overstate this enough. As a real estate licensee in Georgia, right now, today, you're on the front lines of residential mortgage fraud.
Holy moly! What the heck? Hey, Linda, have you ever seen anything like this? I've got a listing appointment in the Wolf Creek subdivision, and these prices just seem to be like all over the place. Never seen anything like this.
Did you say Wolf Creek?
Yes?
I think Wolf Creek is the subdivision they've been talking about on the news so much that's got all that mortgage fraud.
You're kidding me.
I saw it this morning.
Well, I guess that would explain a lot.
We have 2 small boys, and we have been transferred many times, and we thought this is the house that we will stay in, hopefully for 5 to 10 years. This will be the home that our children will remember. This is our resting place. We have come home. After we'd been in the house about 6 months, we started noticing some odd things that we couldn't explain. We would see houses that the for sale sign would come down, but no one would move into the house. Packages would appear on the front porch, mail would be in the mailbox, cars would come and go, but no one was actually living there. One of the major signs that we noticed was there would be no trash pickup. There'd be different cars coming and going, a lot of dealer tags, a lot of out-of-state tags. People would be there for a week or 2 and then disappear. We decided to have our own neighborhood meeting, get people together, let's meet our neighbors, let's find out what's going on, let's see what the problems are, why aren't these properties being maintained. So we called a neighborhood meeting. We also began to see some foreclosures, and we became very concerned about that. We became very isolated and very suspicious and just had a negative outlook. It took over everything about us. I couldn't sleep at night. We rearranged our children's bedroom. We put our boys in the same room, and we moved their bed so that it wasn't by a window, because I was never sure that there wasn't going to be a drive-by shooting. We had gang fights. Several times, Gwinnett County Police were called because these gangs of teenagers who were all living in these rental properties, they were not the fraudsters, but they were the people that were renting the property from the fraudsters. They were the people that were being attracted to these properties. I became reclusive. I wouldn't greet new neighbors until I was able to check into their background, because I didn't trust anyone who moved into this neighborhood. It changed the kind of person I was. It has changed me irrevocably. I will always carry this with me. This house was known as the group home. The detectives had to actually batter the door in when they searched. It has since been used as a drug storage house and is now vacant. This house, the tenant was involved with one of the major drug gangs in Gwinnett County. The tenant in this house printed counterfeit checks in his basement. I will never feel safe and secure about a neighborhood that I move into. I will always be afraid that this is following me.
Methods of residential mortgage fraud have changed over the years. 10 years ago, residential mortgage fraud primarily involved what we all know as flipping. The face of fraud has changed, however, as the industry and law enforcement have become more educated in detecting mortgage fraud. Now, the overwhelming majority of mortgage fraud that we encounter involves fraud on the part of the seller and often the real estate licensee. This fraud often involves inflating contracts or the presence of contract assignments during the negotiation. In this scenario, you will see one of the red flags that a real estate licensee may encounter. That red flag is an assignment contract.
Well, Bill, just as anticipated, you've gotten your first offer on your first listing. This just came across the fax. It's an offer on Country Club Drive. Would you like to take a look at it and see if you have any questions before you present it to the Carters?
Looks good. Full price offer. So I'll get with them this afternoon, see what we can do.
They should be very pleased. Congratulations, Bill.
Thank you, Barbara. Well, Mr. and Miss Carter, we have a contract for the house. It's a full price offer. They're not asking you to pay for any closing costs. They're wanting to use an attorney that I haven't used before, but that should be okay.
Well, that sounds good so far.
Yeah. They want to close in a month, so a quick closing, and they're asking for a home inspection. But since you had it inspected before we listed the home, should be okay.
Right, so the buyer's inspector shouldn't find anything wrong with our home, right, John?
That's right, dear.
Now, this is something unusual. On the special stipulations, page 6, they're asking written permission for it to be assigned. Since the standard contract says that it can't be assigned without written consent, I'm not really sure why they're asking for this.
Why do you think they're asking for that?
We're having a lot of problems with mortgage fraud and lending in real estate, though, so we may want to counter that they remove that special stipulation.
But if they persist, what should we do? We don't want to tie up our home if these aren't the true buyers.
The reason that assignment contracts are a red flag is they are often the first step in a mortgage fraud scheme where the seller of the property is ultimately going to sell their house at a much higher value than they have it listed for or even that they have it contracted for. As I said,
Okay, I'll stop the video right there for a second. The state is now looking at wholesalers for this particular reason as to how wholesaling is done to ensure that it's not constituting mortgage fraud. And there is a bill now that the state legislation has been working with. I don't know where they are with it, but I do recall them saying about a month ago that they were close to having something that was more definite to ensure that mortgage fraud is not evident in those wholesale type transactions. But we'll talk about it more later, but I just wanted to say that real quick.
Said earlier, the face of mortgage fraud has changed. Now mortgage fraudsters rely on sellers of property to kick back money to the fraudster after the closing, or to agree through the assignment of the contract to accept the list price for themselves, and then whatever higher amount the borrower gets for the property to pay them the difference. Again, we call this a kickback, for lack of a better description. In other instances, what we see happen is the seller is asked to validate a false, fictitious, and fraudulent mechanics lien or even a second mortgage used to inflate the price of the property. After the closing, the seller gets what they expected to get, their original asking price. The balance, though, will go back to the fraudster. And this can often be as much as 50%, 100%, or even 200% the original list price of the property. This is very important to you as a real estate licensee, because in order for this form of fraud to work, the fraudster must have a listing, a real estate listing for the fraud value. And that's where you come in. As you'll see in this next scenario, mortgage fraudsters often prey on the seller's need and desire to sell their home. Sometimes a seller is in a financial position where they absolutely have to sell, or maybe they've already moved out and moved across the country. Or, as the scenario will depict, the mortgage fraudster will prey on the seller's personal needs. In doing so, the mortgage fraudster creates a relationship with the seller wherein the seller will kick back money after the closing. And in Georgia, that would be an omission, not disclosed on the HUD settlement statement, not disclosed to the lender, and would constitute residential mortgage fraud.
Greg, you are the man. I mean the man. What a job you did on getting that appraisal to come in just where I wanted it. It's perfect. Yeah, I know it's tight. Now look, just between the two of us chickens here, my underwriter is way too busy to suspect or notice anything. I owe you. And by the way, speaking of that, the buyer's agent is getting ready to direct an entire new subdivision, new homes, 130 of them. Guess what, pal? They're all coming my way. She was just testing me, see how hungry I was. You went over the top for me, but hey, didn't you say you wanted to buy your wife a new Porsche? Well, with the money you're getting ready to make, you'll be able to make that purchase and then some. I'll work out the details soon and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Hello?
Hello, this is John over at Mortgage First. This Red?
Yes, it is. Can I help you?
Hi, Red. My name is John O'Neill. I'm with Mortgage First Lending over in Homeville. Yeah, I'm working with Rich, Indiana, the buyers for your home.
Okay. How can I help you?
Well, listen, we got the appraisal back, and tell you the truth, it's a little higher than the sales price.
I figured it would be. How much higher?
About $30,000.
$30,000. I told Bonnie I thought we had it listed too low.
Well, now, let's think about this. The buyers wanted to be able to buy some furniture and some other things for the house, and I know you need to stay there for about 30 days or so until your new house is ready and your divorce is final. I think I can get the buyer to let you stay in the house for up to 60 days at no charge, and why don't you forget about those repairs that are called for in the contract, too? Well, all we're going to do is raise the sale price by $30,000 on the contract. After the closing, you can give them the $30,000. They'll have the money for the furniture. You can stay for no charge. I mean, up for 60 days or so. Is that going to be long enough?
Well, we really need 90 to 120 days. But I mean, is that legal to change the price and then give them the money?
Well, look, I think I can get them to give you 120 days.
Well, I'll have to pay taxes on that $30,000, won't I? And is it okay to do that? I mean, will it be on the closing statement?
No. You won't pay a penny more in taxes because of the homestead capital gains exemption. And in addition, you're not going to have those extra expenses making those repairs. Plus, you get to stay for 120 days, gratis. Of course, if you need to.
But is it okay to do this, and will it be on the closing statement? And is it okay with my agent?
You don't need to talk to Bonnie at all. I'll take care of that, and the closing statement will show the new price.
But what about the $30,000 being given back to the buyer?
You don't have to worry about that. That's what I'm here for.
Are you going to call Bonnie?
Sure will, as soon as you tell me we got a deal.
Well, I guess so, as long as I can stay as long as I need to, and as long as I don't have to pay any taxes.
I'll make sure of that. Thanks a lot, Red. I'll see you next week at the closing.
Okay, see you there.
Come on in.
Hey, John.
Howdy.
What's up?
Well, we got the appraisal back on the Ellijay property, and it's $30,000 higher than the sales price.
Oh, really? I'm going to really hear it from Red.
Oh, I doubt that. I called him and talked to him about it. He's fine about it.
You called Red?
Yeah, don't get defensive here. I mean, we're going to put this thing together. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to raise the sales price by $30,000. Now, Red is going to give the $30,000 back to the buyers after closing so they can buy furniture and stuff for the new house. And in turn, they're going to let Red stay in the house for up to 120 days if he needs to. Now, they're not going to have to make any repairs, which is called for by the original contract. And here's the best part. You're going to make an additional commission on that $30,000 addition.
I don't know, John. Is this legal?
The HUD statement's going to show the new price, and everybody's going to be happy. Everybody reaps the benefits, including you. It's really the best way for everybody to get what they want in this deal. Tell you what, you get the sales contract fixed, and I'll tell the buyer the good news.
Okay, John, if you think it'll fly.
Hey, I'm in the business of making things fly.
All right, then I guess I'll call Tom, the buyer's agent, and let him know that we're raising the sales price and that we've got a deal. The seller's going to stay in the property 4 extra months, and we're raising the sales price $30,000, right?
Correct.
Okay. Then I'll have Tom call Howell, the closing attorney, and let him know about these new developments.
Hey Tom, it's Bonnie. Yeah, I know, it's raining where I am. I just wanted to let you know that on the LJ property, the buyers and the sellers have agreed.
As I know you saw in the preceding scenario, there are many people that cross that line from doing their job to doing what the law of Georgia now defines as criminal. I think one of the most important things to start off with that you as the real estate licensee needs to understand is who the buyers of these properties are. In the majority of mortgage fraud cases, these are not people who are going to be moving into the house. These are not people that are going to use the $30,000 to buy furniture. They are what we call straw buyers. More often than not, these are people who are investors who have been convinced to buy a piece of property that they'll never see and that they'll never live in, and have been paid $5,000 to $10,000 to purchase the property. Often, these people borrow money on a fraudulent loan application, but more common, these people have good credit scores and have been attracted to the fraud by the fraudsters. The main fraudster will keep the balance of that $30,000, probably using the money to pay the loan for a period of time, and then they'll flip the property at a higher rate. The next important thing that you need to understand is the role of the appraiser in the residential mortgage fraud scheme. In order for a lender to loan money to a fraudster or a group of fraudsters, there must be an appraisal justifying the loan amount. Now, appraisers are the experts at determining what the value of a property is from an objective appraisal standpoint. However, I believe that the best individual most situated to know what the true value of a piece of property is a real estate licensee. You understand the market, you understand the neighborhoods, you know when a piece of property is really worth, say, $150,000. When you encounter a purchase agreement for $300,000 and you know that there's an appraisal backing up that agreement and that loan, and you know that that is not a true and correct valuation of that property, then if you proceed with the deal and obtain a fee from the closing, you may find yourself guilty of residential mortgage fraud.
That's how much you're gonna owe? That's how much I owe you?
Does it look okay to the agents?
That looks good to me.
I need y'all to sign page 3. Red, there's your check. Y'all just sign page 3 and pass them on around for me.
Thank you very much.
Right down here.
Coming to the police department, if everybody would please place your hands on top of the desk.
What's going on?
You're all being
Wait.
placed under arrest in an ongoing investigation concerning mortgage fraud.
But look at that. Go sit down. Go sit down.
You're on mute, Judge.
All right, so you guys see that she paid a $11 million fine and got 30 years in prison. It ain't worth it. It is not worth it. But that's mortgage fraud in a nutshell. But you just have to be mindful of it when you see it. Don't ever let anyone tell you that it's okay, because it's not. You find yourself having to deal with the popo, and they're not friendly. They're not friendly at all.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
So, you know how CPNs are like really popular nowadays? Is purchasing a home with a CPN or requesting a loan with a credit profile number considered mortgage fraud?
Depends. Are you purchasing it to live in it, or are you purchasing it to invest it? It just depends on how it's purchased. The whole thing of the premises of mortgage fraud is to deceive the lender. If it's not deception to the lender, you should be fine. But when you start having some deception to the lender, that's when you have the issue. And that's when it gets real sticky and they want to take you to jail at that point. Yeah. So CPNs may be good, but it just depends on how it's done. Yeah. All right, guys, you guys have chapter 15 rather, which is the dealing with how you calculate loan payment, mortgage payments, things of that nature. We got about 20 minutes. I can do that one for you real quick. It is something that I want you to go and do over the weekend as well. I want you to go back and read that chapter so that way you can be real familiar with how that's done. Come on, machine. All right. You know, there's a lot of things out there that are going on from a mortgage perspective. A lot of it is illegal. However, I would just tell you to just be cautious. If some things sound too good to be true, they are. And you just simply don't want to find yourself caught up in the middle of those too good to be true get rich quick schemes. One thing that I've learned about get rich quick schemes is that you do get rich quick, but you lose it as fast as you got it. Because a lot of times you have to spend more of it to defend yourself behind what you did to get it.
Unless you're Wells Fargo.
Yeah, you can get away with murder at that point. Yeah, if you're Wells Fargo. And they're behind. They should have closed Wells Fargo Bank, but Wells Fargo was dead wrong. They defrauded rather. They said probably 10 million veterans. 10 million. It's a lot. A lot of veterans. Yeah, they've been known for their misdeeds and missteps for years.
While you're pulling that up, what they were doing in that last closing deal with that 120 days.
Yeah.
The insurance fraud part would have been on the buyer.
Yes. Yeah, that would have been insurance fraud. I don't know if I probably shared with you guys in reference to the buyer that we had that from an insurance fraud perspective, but the house burned down and the buyer had let the seller stay in there, and State Farms refused to pay the claim. So yeah, it's insurance fraud. So you got to be mindful of all of those things, the binders and everything. Now, it's not our job to necessarily make sure that they know that. Edgewater, yes, sir, Mr. Johnson, you're right, Edgewater. I know I said Water's Edge, but it's Edgewater. But you know, we have to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a position by by telling our clients that they need to get some legal advice for that. They definitely need to get some legal advice, because otherwise they'll say, well, my agent said it was okay. No, I didn't. Never told you that. Never told you that. All right, let's go through these these slides. And this is going to be dealing with how calculating mortgages and things of that nature. Go to chapter 15. And some of this is going to be redundant for what we've already done, but it's okay. I want to be able to, you know, the more times you hear it, the more times you'll be able to get it. All right, the finance portion of it comes in. They do the pre-qualification. We've talked about a lot of pre-quals as to what's required. You know, a buyer can be pre-qualified, but nowadays our industry does not do a pre-qualification anymore. We primarily do a pre-approval. They're going to run you through the system up front to make sure that you're going to be qualified. Now, the buyer pre-qualify the buyer supplies information to the lender, which is not verified and results in a rough estimate of price. And how lenders jump. Go ahead.
Is there going to be something on our screen? Because I only see something blue.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yep.
no wonder you do. Okay. That's my bad. Now what you see?
Slide.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was my bad. I didn't turn the what's the name off. All right, again, pre-qualification, they just getting preliminary information, hadn't been verified yet. It's a rough estimate. They generally take 2.5 times your income and kind of give you a rough estimate as to what you can qualify for. Pre-approval, meaning that the information has been verified, credit reports have been done, and they pulled your information to set you up for a specific loan. And the lender has a criteria. The value of the property is determined by the appraisal. They need to know what that is. And also the buyer's cash reserves for the down payment, closing costs, and at least the first few months of payment. You know, this used to be really big. I remember when I first bought my house in 91, 92. They wanted to see 3 months of the mortgage in the bank. That was the lender's requirement. You know, hey, I was in tall cotton then, you know, 1991, 92. I'm buying me a nice little $80,000, $85,000 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath ranch, 1,900 square feet. I was the man. But for that price, it was like good. It was like $800 a month. Interest rate was 8% though. But they wanted to see 3 months of the mortgage in the bank before they closed. Brand new house. Owens and Terry over in Woodland Estates off of Connell Road in College Park. 6585 Smoke Ridge Drive was the address. That's been a long time ago. Also, they wanted assurance that the monthly payments may be met by the employment verification, tax records. They want to look at all of those things. Of course, credit bureau was going to be something that they pulled too. That was when you know, they still did the triple reports, but it wasn't a triple merge. They had to pull from all 3 entities separately. And then they go through all 3 of those to see if the credit report information was the same. And if not, you had to explain something on one that wasn't on the other. Now they do a triple merge report. And also the lender is going to look at your front end ratios and your back end ratios. Your front end ratios compares a monthly income to the monthly house payment. The back end ratio compares the monthly income to the monthly expenses, all the debts that you have for your home. Now, these next two are going to be test questions. So I think I've sent you guys these slides as well. If not, I'll get them over to you. I want you to highlight these sections because these are something that you're going to be needing to know as a part of taking the test. If a conventional loan is manually underwritten, the ratios are 26, 28, and 36. 28 on the front end, 36 on the back end. What that means that 28% of your house payment can be the total of your monthly income. And then on the back end, 38% of your expenses, 38% of your income can go towards your expenses. So the front end, 28% of your expenses can go towards your payment. And on the back end, 36% of that can go to your expenses to include the house payment. That's a manually underwritten conventional loan, front end and back end ratios. Then you have the next one. It is the FHA manually underwritten ratios, 29% and 41%. So manually underwritten, 29% of your income can be to your payment, and 41% of your total expenses can go towards the monthly. 41% of your 41% of your income can go towards your total expenses. FHA does front end and back end. VA only does back end. So VA says 41% of your total income can go towards everything. Now that's manually underwritten. That means that the loan officer is processing it themselves and making exceptions. Desktop underwriting or automated underwriting results is a higher debt to income ratio. Typically, you're only going to get automated underwriting if your credit scores are at a certain level. Automated underwriting allows for 45% on the front end for conventional and 50% on the back end for conventional. Now, this next one is the one that scares me. FHA. Look at that. 50% on the front and 50% on the back. You broke. So 50% of your monthly income can go towards your house payment, and 50% of your monthly, 55% of your monthly income can go towards, or excuse me, 50% of your total expenses can go towards your, out of your, let me back up, I keep saying that wrong. 55% of your monthly income can go towards your total expenses. That's dangerous. You kind of house poor at that point. Or what's the other one they used to say? You penny smart but pound foolish. Something like that. Now, the automated underwriting determines the loan to value ratio based upon the merits of each individual borrower. So you got good credit, you've been paying your bills, you good. You good. Now, here's how this is set up. This is a good example here. Faye and Roger Roberts are applying for a loan and want to borrow $145,000. Well, here's what happens. Roger makes $52,000 a year, and Faye works part-time and earns $20,000 per year. So their total income per year is $72,000. However, Their monthly mortgage will be $1,260, including the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. The loan will be manually underwritten, and the front-end ratio should not exceed 28%. And the back-end ratio is going to be no more than about 36%. But first, we need to figure out the front-end ratio. So now we're going to divide the monthly payment, including the principal, interest, tax, and insurance, by the gross monthly income. Here's what this looks like. And it should be in your diagram on your page, rather, on 15-3, excuse me. Gross income, $52,000, $52,000 and $20,000, $72,000. Divide that by 12. They're bringing on, now mind you, gross income is before taxes, not your net, but your gross. So they're bringing home $72,000 a year, which is $6,000 a month. So now the payment is going to be $1,200 and the $6,000. They're going to take $1,200 and divide it by their monthly income. That's going to give them 0.21. So 21% of their monthly income is going to be their mortgage. So that's fine, because 28 was the threshold. All right, so they made it on the front end. Now let's look at the back end ratio. Roger got some issues. Faye and Roger have a car payment of $368 per month. Roger got some child support. Some of y'all looking at me laughing. Roger got some child support. Got that child support at $800 a month. Shoot, that's more than the car payment. That's more than the mortgage. Ooh. Now, the back end ratio should not exceed 36%. Here's how this works. So now, you're going to divide the monthly payments, including the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and all other monthly charges, by the gross monthly income. So we got $1,200 for the mortgage, $368 for the car payment, $800 for the child support. Man, that's a grip. That's $2,428. Well, guess what? We're gonna take that $2,428 and divide it by that $6,000. Faye and Roger don't qualify because they're over the ratios on the back end. The back end said you couldn't be more than 36. They're at 40%. So he either bring the child home with him, cut out the child support, or he go get a part-time job. I tell Faye she gotta go make some more money. Y'all need to lighten up.
So question
You know
for
what?
you.
But you know what though, and I say that I'm joking about it, but you know what? That is a sad reality in some cases as to a lot of people who are buying houses. They don't think that child support payment is required to be reported. And when they report it and tell what it is, it throws them out, to include student loans and any other type of debt that may be associated. Also, not only just child support, but did you know child care expenses are counted as in your debt as well? So if you're paying daycare every month, I think my son told me he was paying $1,200 or $1,300 a month for child care. I'm like, dang, boy. But hey, that's what it is. He got 2 babies. But go ahead, Crystal.
So let's say in this example, let's say they told the lender they were going to sell the car, which I think would bring them probably down into where they need to be. They sold the car and then they bought one. Would the lender be able to do like a loan based on the contingency that they can prove that they've sold the car, or would they just not be able to even do the loan until it's been sold?
They could do it until it's been sold, and it's showing that it's not an obligation on their credit. Yep. It's got to come off. It got to show, it's got to be a PIF on their credit. You know what PIF is, right? Paid in full. That'd be the only way that they could do it. All right, any questions about that? Good. Here's what we got. It's 9 o'clock. You have this exercise. Do it for homework. We'll go over it on Thursday. Because Thursday we're going to start seller's costs. But do this exercise here to do the calculations of this. It's good for you to know how to do these, folks. It really, really is. It is ultra good for you to know how to do this, because you can help your clients out a lot when you have the ability to do some basic mathematical problem techniques for them to help them better understand what they need to do and what they don't need to do. And you can streamline the process too as to whether or not somebody's eligible and ready to buy versus somebody who isn't. Tajara, this should bring back some memories for you, right?
It's been a long, long time, maybe.
Okay. All right. All right, any questions?
Yeah, so the on the left, these are the examples, and we fill in the blanks on the right.
That's correct. That's correct. You're just gonna do it just like we did this other. Add them all up and do the dividing. You're gonna add up. You're gonna take the monthly expenses or the monthly payment for the loan divided by the monthly income, and that's gonna give you a ratio. Oh God, it was something else I was going to tell you. I don't worry about it. I'll think of it later. I'll think of it later. All right. Any other questions?
On the wholesaling thing, I was told that I guess to make it more legal, is to do a double closing instead of the assigning.
Yeah, but it all depends on who you close first. The states and attorneys have been saying this. They've been seeing that the assignee has been closing before the assignor, meaning that the person that found so for instance, I'm selling my house. You're a wholesaler. You buy it from me at 100,000. You go find somebody to buy it at 160,000. Well, what happens is that you close before you and I close. So the wholesaler can have the money in order to pay me for it. Technically, you can't do that. And that's what they've been having. But the attorneys who've been doing the deals have been doing it in reverse. And the attorneys are the ones that can potentially get everybody in trouble as well. And especially if there's a mortgage involved, at this point, it's mortgage fraud, because the attorneys have reviewed the titles and now has said, okay, the titles are clear, and send it to the lender, but yet they don't send it to the lender. They don't send it to the lender with the original information on it. They send it to the lender with the new buyer's information on it or the new seller's information on it. That's been the issue, and that's mortgage fraud. Or they're not telling the lender that this property is being wholesaled and another closing must take place first before you can take place. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that on the internet. The person I've been speaking with, they were talking about, yeah, you purchasing it like you're supposed to, and then you do your other sale. That way you don't get yourself in any kind of trouble.
Right. And then the other thing that they're seeing too is that a lot of sellers were not aware that the property was being wholesaled and sold to someone else. And the seller must agree to that. Yeah, so it's been a lot of issues. So the again, the state is going to be coming up with a law as to how that has to be done. And here now, a wholesaler theoretically is practicing real estate without a license because they're selling somebody else's property before they actually owned it. And Georgia law says is that in order to sell property for someone else, you must have a license, a real estate license to do so. Even though you may have a right to the property, you only have equitable title, you don't have legal title. And equitable title does not give you the right to sell it. Legal title does. So I mean, it's a number of things that they're looking at that they're going to try to address to keep wholesaling at minimum to the point where it's not breaking the law. Two is that it's not harming the public. So their whole intent is not to harm the public.
And then in Decatur, like, well, it was probably late last year, early this year, I was just driving around looking at properties with my dad. And I was looking at houses that, you know, it was overgrown, they were boarded up. You could tell the inside would look terrible. And they were still trying to sell those houses at like 150,000. Are they, and I know people were flipping them for like 300,000 after you put the money into them, but were they worth the 150 at the time, or do you think that was more falling into like mortgage fraud?
It could have been falling into mortgage fraud, but the question is that did they have an appraisal that showed that the property was worth what it was they were trying to sell it for? And if they had an appraisal that did that, then you know they may have been okay. But if they didn't have an appraisal that justified the new value, then yeah, it could have been mortgage fraud. It could have been falsely inflated and had an appraisor to falsely inflate it, and that's called kiting when that takes place. Kiting is something that appraisers do when they falsely inflate properties.
So as an agent, how do you, well, I guess you do comparables, but again, when you're dealing with areas like this where you might have things that were sold, you know, with all this going on, how do you come back and get an accurate price? Do you insist that your clients get an appraisal, or?
Yeah, but we also have systems that will give us good numbers as well. We have what is called the Realtor Property Resource System, RPR. RPR, I can put in any address, and pretty much any address in the country, and RPR will give me a price. Now that I got you, I'm gonna try to pull it up here real quick so that way you can just kind of see it. But what RPR does, it just simply gives me the appraised value. You can give me an address of a location, and RPR will come up and say, okay, this is what this property is worth. And it takes about 3 minutes.
Judge?
Yes.
It's like a property I was looking at where I know the person that wanted to sell.
Do y'all see the RPR screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they give you these reports. I'm sorry, Roger, go ahead. You said a property you were looking at, sir?
Saying a personal friend I know wanted to sell their house. It's almost condemned, but they wanted to sell it like we're gonna give them say $100,000 for it. But the value on it, the aftermarket value is like $300,000.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as long as you get an appraisal to justify, you're good.
Okay, they would adjust that now. They would justify it not in its state as it now, but the aftermarket value, correct?
Right. Right. It will give you a after appraised value, after repair value, excuse me.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
That's what the hard money lenders are going off of when they give us the money.
Right. Typically, yeah. The appraisal is telling them you do this work to this property, this should be worth this amount of money.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, now this is the RPR system, this Realtor Property Resource. I can even do commercial property as well. It gives me a commercial property appraisal as well. I just put, all thing I need is an address. That's it. Takes about 3 minutes. And it gives me a ton of statistics and report and data pertaining to it. So somebody want to give me an address?
Sure. 4665 Dunedin, Dunedin.
DUN. There it is.
Yep.
And all you gotta do a lot of times is just put in the first few letters of the word. Now I'm gonna do a seller's report. Now this seller's report is about 50 pages. It's very detailed. It gives you schools, everything in the area. And I just click on run report. And once I click on run report, it tells me it takes about 2 minutes. Then it'll pop up. And once the report pops up, at that point, I can go through it. I can download it as a PDF or whatever it is that I want to do with it. I can email it to the client. As you can see here, I can have the report processed and emailed it to the client. Once it pops up, it'll go directly to the client as well as to me. Everybody have it at the same time. And this is what you have when you're a Realtor member. You have to be a Realtor member to have access to it. And there's 24-hour customer service, and they have about, I think it's like 30 or 40 different languages that people speak. That's on the other side, that if you need someone speaking a language that you don't necessarily, or English is not your first language, you tell them what language it is, and they will in terms get somebody on there in some cases that can speak your language. And it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Somebody's there waiting for you to talk to you. And this, as a part of being a Realtor member, when you join the board, this technically cost me $30 a year. But it's worth its weight in gold in the sense of market analysis, because I used to have to go through MLS to do a market analysis and start breaking it down. This breaks it down for you. I still do the MLS version of it sometimes, not all the times, because it just depends on the area where we are. And if the data is up to date. The problem you have a lot of times is in Fulton County. Fulton County don't necessarily update their tax records continuously. So therefore you don't get the proper data sometimes. House may have just sold and it's been 6 months. Fulton County still hadn't put it in the system yet. So that's the issue from time to time with that. But otherwise, most of your other counties, they're updated within about 72 to 48 hours after the deed is filed. And you can get good information as to what the property value would be. But this should pop up here in a second. It'll be like a doorbell, go ding dong. Says 2 minutes remaining. It's generating. Back. Oh, these are preliminary numbers on it now. It's telling me that it was last listed 10/28/2020. The average value, the AVM right now is was 216. And it gives you where the property is located. It throws in some different comps around it that are comparable to the property that you're looking at. Like I said, this is just a preliminary snapshot. Now this is 1 star. I'm hoping more stars pop up once it's done, because the more stars you have, the more accurate the value will be. And again, this is in Fulton County. Sometimes Fulton County doesn't necessarily give you a lot of stars. There it is. It's ready now. Because of the fact that Fulton County tends to be slow with updating their records. All right, you guys see this form pop up now? All right, so now this is the property. It has, you know, if you're the agent, has your picture and things of that nature on the front of it. Your name, your license number, all that good stuff. Yeah, it still only gave me 1 star. So with that 1 star, then what I can do now is go through a process of elimination in the neighborhood and then in terms figure out what the actual value is going to be. So it's giving me a range. The average value in the market is roughly between 131 and 300, but it just depends on some other things that's going on with the property. One is age is going to be a big factor. This was built in 78. Has it been remodeled? And if so, when was the last time it was remodeled? It's going to give you an aerial shot of it. It's also going to give you what's going on in the area in that zip code and what has happened from land values perspective. It breaks it down from the state of Georgia, Fulton County, the zip code, as well as that house. What has happened to that house over the period of time. Then it goes on to tell you who the owner of it is and how they got it. This is a quitclaim deed. Somebody got a virtue of a quitclaim deed in 2000. And this is called a heat map. This just shows you where properties are hot at, what's selling fast. This is a condensed version of the heat map. And it gives you the seller's report, below listing values, what's going on in the neighborhood from the statistical perspective. So this helps you better deal with the seller who is wanting more for a property when you can't justify more. It tells you where the trends are. Like here, properties were going up. This 2018. January 2018. It was going up. Then it dipped in 19. But the median price kept rising. The median list price dropped. Sales price kept going up, but the list price dropped. And that's typically because what happens there is that properties were being sold, being listed as is, but they were being sold on an after repaired value amount, so they can pull the money out. That's when you see the disparity there. That's how come that's that way. Krista, you need this report?
Sure, I'll take it.
I'll give it to you.
Thank you kindly.
And then it goes on to just find comps where in that area that are similar to the subject property. But again, is looking for the most recent sales. And these are the listed ones. These are active market right here. And then it's going to get down to the ones that are actually, it's just going to give you it's going to give you an individual picture of all of them. And see, all of these are 1 star. So what you tell me, like I said, Fulton County doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me at all, because Fulton County is just very, very slow with getting their information in. This one here is a 4 star, which is the more stars you have, the better, the more accurate the price is.
Could it be a 1 star if a homeowner owned it for about 40 plus years and it wouldn't be in the system or something?
Well, no, because the value is going to be based upon the properties in the area that are selling. That's what the value is going to be based upon. So that's why a 1 star for that one would not be very good, because of the fact that there's probably more properties in the area that have sold, they just have not been listed. And this is new construction here. So new construction is thrown in there, but new construction doesn't necessarily bring about a lot of change in value. And how I knew it was new construction too is because it's D.R. Horton. See that down on the bottom? This is also new construction. No stars on it as well. But new construction is not bad in an area. It helps. Here's one here. This is a bungalow. 175, list price 93. I'm sure they probably had it appraised because it probably was remodeled. It's been on the market 2 days. See, it tells me how long it's been on the market too. They just listed this on the 8th.
Hey Judge, did that property you just was talking about, is it possible that was on the market before?
It is, but it would tell me in the history if it was.
It would? Because
Yeah.
I've seen the place before when I was in New York.
Yeah, it would tell you, it'll tell you in the history if the property was on the market before. This property here, this has got 5 stars. So it's 269 is where they have it listed at, but it's telling me that the highest price in that neighborhood is gonna be 210. And I would tell you this, with an RPR report, I generally sell a price within $2,000 to $3,000 of the RPR report, about 97%. So it's highly accurate. Now, they priced this property right. 220, the RPR says 218. And understand, an appraiser is going to look at this as well. He or she's going to do an RPR snapshot. No, but it's just, it's a good source as far as helping you pricing properties really, really fast and accurately. But you still sometimes have to go and do your homework. Now, here's the properties that are sold, and this is what it's going to be compared to. It's going to be compared to the sold properties. These are recent sales. This property here was listed at 230, it sold for 238. 284, sold for 284. 249.9, it sold for 249. This is new construction here, so it's going to be at the 3, whatever the amount was that the new construction dictated. 273. So, and you want to see a lot of properties that are within, again, its list price. This one here was listed and it was on the market 19 days. I mean, this is number 19. They tell me how many days was on the market real quick. It'll scroll down to it. Days on market. Oh, I got to go to the individual reports for that. But the point is that they've been selling for what they're listed for. And if they listed them according to RPR's values, then, you know, those are good. Sold at 225, is on the market 70 days. It will give you the original list price on another report. So, I mean, it's a very sound report that gives you good information about properties, so that way you can make sure that you're getting the best value out of it. All right, I'm gonna send this to you right now, Crystal. Let's see. Let's go back. Home reports. I don't want that. All right, any other questions about that? Crystal, you should get this in a second.
Okay.
But I mean, our systems now have made things so much easier for us. You know, you don't have to do a lot of research on a lot of stuff, that time-consuming research, because of the system itself allows for things to happen much faster. Much faster. You know, where we did that report in about 2 minutes, where in some cases it would have taken me about a day in order to really get all of the numbers and statistics together in order to get that report out to a client for them to know what their property was going to be worth. All right, folks, if y'all have nothing else for me, I'm gonna go get me some popcorn.
Let's snack around.
Yes, yes, yes.
Good night. Good night.
All right, and Maurice.
Study group tomorrow, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Happy Veterans Day. Tomorrow's Veterans Day, folks.
Oh, happy Veterans Day, everybody.
Salute.
Yeah, it's only
Thanks
two
for your
days.
See y'all
service.
tomorrow.
Happy Veterans Day.
Yeah, it was a good week. The Giants got to win too, so I'm happy. Hey,
Beat up on my Redskins like that.
you know what I'm saying? Hey, Judge, I'm going to IHOP tomorrow and get my free food, so make sure you go to get yours.
All right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, because I like morning breakfast, so I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get the breakfast from them. Then I'll probably go to Chili's or something for the dinner. And then I'll probably go to Baskin Robbins for the ice cream. And let me see, Dunkin' Donuts also give me something away.
Use
I'll
all of
probably
those.
I'll probably go to Dunkin' Donuts just before class so I can pass out.
Oh, that's right. Dunkin' Donuts do it. I have to take my DD 214 up there tomorrow. Then okay.
Yeah, well, all you gotta do is show that card, man. You good. You ain't gotta do all that DD 214. You good.
Well, I got it on my phone anyway, so it's good.
All right, man.
All right, folks. Y'all have a good night.
And happy birthday to you too, Judge.
All right.
Thanks,
you.
Judge. I got it. Good night.
Okay, great. Miss Tara, you doing all right tonight, ma'am? You've been quiet. I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes.
All right. You've been quiet tonight. I said she gonna slip out of here and ain't say nothing tonight.
Nah, I'm good.
You good? Okay. All right. All right. Well, have a good night. We'll talk to you on Thursday.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.